Hey guys, coming at you today with a super simple recipe for a delicious, creamy, low-carb custard pie recipe. So, let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for joining me. My name's Alycia. I'm a pastry chef with a sweet tooth, and now I own a keto gluten-free bakery, and I'm here to show you all the tips and tricks on how to make the best recipes possible. So if you enjoy my recipes, please hit the subscribe button down there, give the video a thumbs up, leave me comments, share with all your friends and family. It all helps me, my bakery, my channel grow, and to bring you new recipes every Saturday. And maybe some bonus recipes during the week. Today, a super simple custard pie recipe. And full disclosure, I have never made a custard pie in my life, but my husband's birthday's coming up, and every year I ask him what he wants. And he mentioned that his grandmother used to make a custard pie, and he hasn't had it in a long time. So I got to researching. So I'm gonna link down below the original because I literally used her filling recipe, just made it low carb. And he had no idea what the original recipe was, but I showed him the picture and the website of that particular recipe. And he's like, yep, that looks like it. I'm like, okay. So I got to testing on it and came up with a delicious low carb version. And it's pretty simple, but we have to start with the pie crust. So this is a pretty old recipe of mine. I think it dates back almost 3 years ago now, but people were asking on my apple fritter recipe video that they wanted a good pie crust. I have literally made so many different pies with this pie crust. I will link up there my pie, custard, and mousse playlist. It is super simple and gets nice and crispy and flaky. So I'm bringing you the pie crust recipe again. And it's very much like a regular pie crust. Do 3 ounces of a salted butter. You don't have to use salted, you can use unsalted, but you gotta add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt to your dry ingredients. I just grate the butter, but you can literally do it however you've done your pie crust in the past. There's people that cube it and freeze it, and then work it in with a pastry blender or fork or knives or something like that. You can also do this all put into a food processor. You just gotta be very careful not to blend it too much because you don't want to lose your chunks of butter in there. I just like being able to feel it with my hands and know that I'm not working the butter in too much and stuff like that. You can definitely use a salad shooter, which I usually do when I'm making a big batch, which you can make a 6 times batch of this, break it up into discs and freeze it, and you can have it for all your holiday baking. It's definitely a nice recipe to have on hand in your freezer. I just put it into the refrigerator to defrost overnight. It's easier that way. Let's see what we got. Almost. Probably another 0.1 ounces in here. Oh, actually it didn't stick too bad in there. Okay, 3 ounces, popping that into the freezer while we get our dry ingredients ready. For the dry ingredients, it's just equal parts unflavored whey protein isolate, oat fiber, and coconut flour. I did 1 scoop of protein powder, which is usually 29 grams, but 30 isn't gonna hurt you any. 30 grams of oat fiber and 30 grams of coconut flour. Okay, my card was full, so I had to stop and delete a bunch of stuff. I was gonna say the coconut flour is usually a 1/4 cup for 30 grams, but I never trust cup measurements. They're always different than what the package says and stuff, so I always suggest weighing things out. But I also have an experiment video I did, swapping out all these different flours in this recipe and the different outcomes that happened. So I'll link that up there for you if you wanna know if you can swap some stuff out for this. I think this is the best version, but there are definitely some swaps you can make. To that, we're gonna add 1 teaspoon of beef gelatin. And my original recipe was 1 teaspoon of xanthan gum, but since then, my xanthan gum seems to be a little bit stronger. I did accidentally use the full strength and it was fine. It was just a little bit stickier, I think, just from the xanthan gum, but now only a 1/2 teaspoon of xanthan gum. I wish I can go back and edit all my recipes, but I have over 200 recipes on my channel and it's so hard to like find time to do anything, let alone go back and fix all my old videos. That's it for the dry ingredients. We're just gonna give them a whisk. And you can throw that in the freezer too if you want, if it's kind of warm in your house and stuff like that. It's only 65 degrees in here, so my dry ingredients aren't very warm, so they're just gonna stay out. I do have 4 eggs coming to room temperature for the pie filling, just so you know. And the last ingredient for the pie crust is just ice water. This is a good recipe to make ahead, like I said, in big batches, or even just the night before, because it can chill in your fridge. It needs to chill a little bit before you go and roll it out. So I grab a fork to do the mixing to not melt the butter with my hands. I'm just gonna grab some cold water. We'll put ice in it right before we need to use it. Now that we're kind of all set up, let's get our butter out of the freezer. We're just gonna add it into our dry ingredients. Mix it all up with the fork first. Break up the bigger pieces. And then just break it up a little bit with your hands. You don't need to do a lot because we already grated it. A little pea-sized pieces of butter in there. Yeah, that should be good. Grab a couple ice cubes for your water. You don't need to wait if you have like refrigerator cold water. I don't have any in the refrigerator here, so I had to get it out of the tap. So it's definitely not as cold. I didn't want all my ice cubes to melt. Start with 4 tablespoons. It's much easier to use different ingredients and different brands in recipes like this because you're adding just as much liquid as it takes to make the dough. If you tend to swap other brands out in other recipes, they may not be the same absorbency as the ones that I'm using. So these kinds of recipes are much easier to swap different ingredients out. I'm gonna add 1 more tablespoon. Starting to come together. So that was 5. Like 6.5. See, a lot of little balls are forming. See if you can kind of bring it together with your hand very gently. You don't want to melt the butter. Maybe need another half tablespoon. Let's get the last of it. There you go. Should be good to form. Make sure you get all of the dough. Okay, wrapping this in plastic wrap and throwing it into the freezer to chill for like 15 minutes. You can also chill it in the fridge, like I said, overnight, but at least probably an hour in the fridge. Popping it in the freezer. We'll be back when it's time to roll it out. Okay, it's been about 15 minutes, so I'm all set up to roll out this pie dough. I got 2 sheets of parchment paper. I have my 1/8 inch bands on my rolling pin. Comes in handy. The first test I did, I didn't use bands and the crust was a little bit thick. So it definitely helps to have the bands on there. I'm using a 9-inch disposable pan because I only have 1 pie pan and I did several tests. So I'm going to definitely spray your pan. I know you'd think with all the butter in it that it wouldn't stick, but it does, and I've accidentally forgotten to spray it before. It's not good. I have it on a sheet tray because it may spill, and then I have a homemade pie shield. They definitely sell these. I just don't cook a ton of pies, so usually I make one for like the season of pie making, which is like the end of the year, and I'll reuse it every time. I just folded a bunch of aluminum foil. I just fold it around the pie crust while it's baking because it bakes for quite a while. So I'm gonna grab out my pie dough. I usually start with a little squeeze. If your hands are hot, careful not to touch too much. This is a very forgiving pie dough. Like, you can literally just push it back together. If it cracks, it falls apart. Just go in all directions. Every once in a while, I release it, push it in. Whoops. You lose a little bit, push it back in. Once you're all rolled out, should be good. You're definitely bigger than your pie pan. Try to remember to release it from both sides. I forget most of the time to do that. Put it in the middle. Do a flip. pull it up and push it in. Don't just go in with your hand. You want to gently set it into the pan so you're not stretching out and thinning out the pie dough. It is very delicate, which means it's going to be nice and flaky. Okay, once you got it pretty much in where you want it, go around and make an edge. If you got too much dough somewhere, put it somewhere else. This also helps you being able to put more filling in it. If you make the pie crust edge a little bit higher, use all our pie filling. We're gonna need more pie dough. Grab your scraps. The dough likes to stick to itself like a lot of my other doughs. So if you have it on your fingers, it tends to stick to your fingers. Try to use all the pie dough. I'm gonna go wash my hands so that it's not sticky anymore and I can make a nice edge on here. Once you don't have dough on your hands, you can go in and make your edge. You can do whatever you want, some fancy edging. This is just what I grew up doing with my mom, making apple pies and stuff like that. So there you go. Throwing this in the freezer while we get our filling ready. Okay, at this point, you can preheat your oven to 375. And I kept this recipe pretty similar to the original recipe. There's just a few tips and tricks and some swaps we had to make it a little bit lower carb. But it is a very simple recipe. So I have 4 eggs here. The original recipe did pre-bake the pie shell. Ours, we do not need to do that. Like I said, we need the pie shield because it tends to get too dark because of the coconut flour. And in her recipe, she used 3 eggs and an egg yolk, and she used the egg white to brush the pie shell to get like a shine on it when she pre-baked it, but we don't need to do that. So we're gonna use 3 eggs and an egg yolk in here, and you're just gonna save your white. You can freeze it if you want. I have been getting these eggs that aren't all 50 grams anymore. They used to be all pretty big and maybe a couple small. Now they're all small. And yesterday I couldn't even get 150 grams out of 3 eggs. So I used a little bit of the white and the yolk from the 4th egg. So you want 150 grams of egg and then an egg yolk if you want to weigh it. And also large eggs are a 1/4 cup. So you need 3/4 of a cup if you want to do it that way. This one feels real light. Yep, it was only 47 grams. I'm gonna put my egg white into something else right now. My egg yolk into there. I didn't try it, but I'm sure it would work with using a whole nother egg. I just think the addition of just the yolk and not the white gives it a little bit richer of a flavor or texture to it. I kept the same amount of sweetener. For things like this, I definitely use my family as a guide because it's something I've never made before. So I made a version and I had them taste it and I asked them if it was sweet enough for them and if they liked it. Because this isn't my thing, like I'm not a big like custard person. And I don't think I've ever had a custard pie before, so I definitely use my family as guinea pigs for this stuff. And I kept the sweetener the same. If you don't have a big sweet tooth, you can definitely minus this to probably only a 1/2 cup. I'm using 3/4 of a cup. And I could have done more testing with this with using allulose. I did use allulose in my lemon bars, but the lemon bars don't bake as long. So I worry about using allulose in something that bakes for 55 minutes. You could probably use like a tinfoil cover on it to keep it from browning too much, but I haven't tested it. So I just used my normal monk fruit erythritol blend, and it should be 3/4 of a cup or 144 grams. All depends on if you level it all out all nice. Then the only other swap I had to make was she used heavy cream and it just said milk. I'm guessing she didn't use skim milk though. She probably used like a 2% or whole milk. Just had to swap that out. I just weigh everything out because it's easier that way. I find it's almost always the same as like the measurements on the cup. Instead of the milk, I just did a 1/2 cup of heavy cream with a cup of water to basically make like a whole milk solution kind of thing. I'm sure it will work with like a low carb milk, 1.5 cups either way. So 4 ounces or a 1/2 cup. And then 1 cup, I'm gonna do warm water and I'll explain why in a minute. So the original recipe, it didn't pour well, geez. Just mixed everything together. But the thing with our sweeteners is they don't dissolve like regular sugar and they also recrystallize when they cool. So if you've ever made a pie where there is like a white cast on the top of the pie after it's cooled for a while or been in the refrigerator, it's because your erythritol is recrystallizing in there. The way around that is to warm up the mixture a little bit to get it to melt and distribute better than just mixing cold. So I warm up that with the warm water a little bit, and then I'm gonna pop this in the microwave just to get it not chilled anymore and to have a little bit of warmth to it to help dissolve our sweetener. And the only other ingredients is a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. We're just whisking this all together. And with getting the sweetener more dissolved and distributed throughout the entire pie, it definitely helps with the cooling effect that some people get from erythritol. So it's just like lukewarm to the touch, and this is a little bit warmer. So I'm going to stream it in and whisk. You can already see like there was sweetener on the side. It's already looking more dissolved. Add in the cream. That's it. You don't really see any more crystals going up on the side of the bowl. It's all set to go. Now time to get our pie crust out. I took out some of the little beads that were in there of dough that you don't want because they will float in the custard. Wrapping the pie shield around. Just like that. And pour your custard in. And the last thing in the original recipe was freshly grated nutmeg. I'm the first to admit I'm not a big nutmeg fan, but fresh grated is way better than like the nutmeg they put in like pumpkin spice and stuff like that. Like this smells so much better than the jarred ground stuff. It called for a 1/4 teaspoon in the recipe, but it just said the fresh grate on top. You can add a 1/4 teaspoon into the mix if you don't want to get the fresh grated. Oh. Don't dump it in there. That'd be bad. Did this yesterday with not even a close call. It's the whole talking and grating at the same time. Okay, so the original recipe was only 35 to 45 minutes, but my oven runs pretty cold. But it also jumps up in temperature randomly, so I don't like to put it up too high because it has jumped from being set at 350 and it's gotten all the way up to 425. And I don't want that to happen, so I have it set at 375, even though my thermometer inside my oven only says about 350, 360. It took 54 minutes for me yesterday, but I'll show you what it needs to look like when you pull it out. You want it still jiggly, so your oven will determine the actual cook time on this. So, putting this into the oven. Carefully. Whew. So I'm setting the timer for 20 minutes. Another reason it probably took longer is I have to keep opening the oven and checking the thermometer in there to make sure it's not jumping up too high. So that's another reason why it probably took longer to cook than it should have. Today I'm gonna try not to look at it too much and hopefully it'll be done a little bit faster. Okay, so it's been 20 minutes, so I'm gonna give it a turn. Still pretty liquidy, so you gotta be careful. Another 20 minutes, and then I'll give it a check, but it's probably not gonna be done. It looks like my oven is staying around 360, so be back when we turn it again. It's been another 20 minutes, getting there. So I'm gonna turn it, do 5, and do another 5. Okay, it's been another 5 minutes. I'm gonna rotate it again and check it. I might set it for more than 5. I'm gonna set it for 8 more minutes, and I think it should be done, hopefully. Okay, it's been another 8 minutes. It's still jiggly. It's looking about done. I'll show you what I did with the last one I made to check to make sure the middle was done. I did a little slice inside, and it comes out pretty much clean. You're good to go. So this has to chill to room temperature, and then it's best refrigerated. Now, I actually have one chilling already that I made earlier today. So we can slice right into it. Here is our beautifully chilled custard pie. Let's give it a slice. Question is, will we get a nice piece on the first slice? That never happens. So I'll put up the nutrition label right here. It's only 3 grams net carbs for 1/8 of this pie, but feeling it's not cut all the way through. I'm gonna take the little knife. I think it's right near the edge here that's not cut all the way through. Yeah. Come on. Oh, it's a custard pie. See the, all right, nice and flaky. Wow, that was the best first slice ever. Still seems like the pie crust is a little thick. Is that 1/8? It's measuring about 1/4 inch thick. I don't know how that's possible when I use 1/8 inch bands. Weird. I swear I have 1/8 inch bands on my rolling pin. That's weird. So this pie crust is gonna be a little bit too thick, I think, but let's give it a taste. Silky and creamy. A little hint of spice with that nutmeg. Be hard to see the flakiness. So thick. But you got layers in there. See a little bit of flakiness there. Tastes delicious. Crispy, crunchy crust. Classic custard pie. Here I am not really a fan of custard pie, but it's still so good I want to keep eating it. A little bit of vanilla, a little bit of nutmeg, creamy, it's delicious. So I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe and try it out for yourself. If not the custard pie, one of my many other pies. I've done pumpkin, apple, lemon meringue. Last year I did a pecan pie. So let me know what you plan to use this pie crust for. Let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to check out my Amazon shop page. The link will be down in the description box below, along with the blog link to the full recipe. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I'll be back with more keto, low carb, healthy meals, desserts, and snack recipes. Bye guys. Happy keto baking.